Why do we want sequels? That will probably sound like a stupid question. When we like something, we want more of it, and that means sequels. When you see an amazing film or play a remarkable video game, you will naturally be excited when a sequel is announced. But that doesn't really make any sense. Of course, there are plenty of examples of good sequels that do deliver more of the thing we love. But there is still a great problem with the concept of sequels. They greatly limit the creativity of any writer. Very rarely have I ever experienced a sequel that made me feel like it was 100% what the creator wanted to make. If something really good comes out, it is actually counterproductive to ask for a sequel. Because asking for a sequel means limiting the creativity of the creator whose work you so greatly enjoy. Sequels themselves aren't really the problem. It's the audience asking for sequels. Sequels are of course not all bad. Firstly, there are trilogies like The Lord of the Rings and Star Wars. It wouldn't make much sense to only make the first movie in these series. But the difference is that these movies were meant to be part of a trilogy from the start. They tell one cohesive story. In a way, they are almost one massive film split into 3 parts, even if each part has a different tone. One of these parts could never exist on its own. These kinds of sequels are perfectly fine and even necessary. The problem arises when a sequel is made only because the original product was so successful. For example, I find it hard to imagine that the writer of Shrek had envisioned a grand Shrek series from the start. The only reason Shrek 2 got made was because the first one was a big success. In this example, the writers were actually lucky to have a good idea for a sequel. And so Shrek 2 turned out to be a pretty good movie. But we only need to look a little further to see that this isn't always the case. Shrek 2 was pretty successful as well, so it's not too surprising that also Shrek 3 got made. This time the writers were clearly struggling. They had to come up with a mediocre script because there were no stories worth telling anymore in that universe. And so the movie turned out pretty bad as a result. I'm sure the writers would have much rather worked on something else than another Shrek sequel. Not only would they have been happier, but we would have gotten a better movie. Even Shrek fans should be happier with a good film made by the creator they enjoy, than with a bad film in the Shrek series. As we have seen in the example just now, there are also good sequels that were made in hindsight, like Shrek 2. But this happens very rarely and only when the writer just happens to come up with a good idea. It only happens when he decides that a sequel is actually worth making. That's why it should be up to the creator and only the creator whether or not they want to make a sequel. The audience should never ask for one. That only decreases the chance that they will get a good movie in return. This is also one of the reasons why Hollywood seems so uninspired these days. We need to put less emphasis on franchises and brands and more on the creators. So next time you find yourself really enjoying something, don't say "I can't wait for the sequel," but say "I can't wait to see what these people are going to make next." That way writers can let their creativity flow and they can make the best thing they possibly can. And we will get that thing in return. That seems to be the only cure to this devastating disease called sequelitis. Thank you for watching this very poorly produced video. You may have noticed that my voice sounds a little weird, but that is because I have a cold. I promise that I will sound more enthusiastic next time.